Hello everyone. So, it's time for the annual Cream of the Crop video. Same as most years, I'm going to be honoring my top 5 games of the year, plus one honorable mention. To be honest, I wasn't that thrilled with this year overall when it comes to games. It was that typical slow, bland year when a new console generation is just starting to warm up. Even with the coronavirus screwing everything up, I felt like 2020 was a much stronger year by comparison. Hell, even the usually reliable PlayStation has nothing to show for itself on this year's list. But in the end, I was still able to find 5 games that really impressed me in 2021. So, without further ado, let's dive in. The honorable mention this time around is technically 2 games that share a very similar genre and style: Famicom Detective Club and The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. While I think Great Ace Attorney is better than Famicom Detective Club as a whole, I'm including both here because I've grown to enjoy this type of game over the last few years. With both titles, I loved making myself a cup of coffee, sitting in my big chair in the living room, and playing them portably on my Switch. These games are this generation's version of curling up with a good book near a warm fire. Both collections feature captivating mysteries, marvelous art direction and animation, and great characters. If you love detective stories, these 2 bundles are easy recommendations from me to you. Kena Bridge of Spirits is a rarity. Ever since it was first announced during PlayStation's PS5 reveal showcase in 2020, it gave off a lot of red flag warnings on its way to release. It looked way too pretty and polished for a first-time studio. It was delayed multiple times. The marketing for it was borderline non-existent for a few months before its release. And, most concerning of all, Ember Labs set the review embargo for the minute the game became available to purchase worldwide. These signs usually spelled disaster in my mind for any game. Thankfully, it turned out that I had nothing to worry about. In a year where multiple AAA titles had the style and structure of a PS2 era platformer, Kena was my personal favorite out of the bunch. It was a beautifully realized vision, packed with the single best art direction of the year, an extraordinary soundtrack, enjoyable combat, and some killer boss fights. Its art direction is something I want to highlight. We live in a time where publishers and developers don't care about presenting truly representative footage of their games to us before launch. The reason I called Kena a rarity is that not only did it live up to its marketed beautiful visuals, but the results succeeded what was shown off in the pre-release trailers. It's depressing that this isn't the norm, but I think it's truly commendable that a first-time developer acting as its own publisher did what EA and Ubisoft usually don't want to do with its far more expensive titles. Its occasional annoying difficulty spikes and obvious first-time developer growing pains prevent it from ranking higher on the list, but Kena Bridge of Spirits is something I still hold in high regard. I applaud Ember Labs for their valiant first effort, and I can't wait to see what they do next. While we all wait for Nintendo's big follow-up to Super Mario Odyssey, lead developer Nintendo EPD decided to create an interesting experimental title to fill the void. Bowser's Fury is a remix of the visual and gameplay elements of Super Mario 3D World into an open-world platformer. Aside from it being an obvious way to entice people to purchase the Switch port of 3D World, I honestly had no idea what to make of Bowser's Fury the first time I saw it. I hadn't played 3D World at that point, but the idea of an open-world Mario game with a Godzilla-like Bowser occasionally appearing to wreak havoc was something I didn't expect. But in the end, this strange experiment made for a delightful game. I've grown weary of and almost outwardly hostile towards the open-world genre and all the bloat that usually comes chained to it. And that's exactly why Bowser's Fury is perfect for someone like me. It's vast without being overwhelming, features a decent amount of gameplay and scenic variety to never become boring, and is packed with enough hidden collectibles and secrets to make exploration feel rewarding. Lake Lapcat is a place I never grew tired of and wanted to keep wandering around in. I respect Bowser's Fury's brevity and bite-sized design philosophy, and I hope Nintendo makes more games like it in the future. It provides a memorable experience and ends just when the concept begins to run the risk of growing stale. It may not be Super Mario Odyssey 2, but it's still easily my favorite thing Nintendo released in 2021. I'm willing to bet that a lot of people forgot this even came out last year, because I haven't seen a lot of recognition for Persona 5 Strikers during the end of 2021 honorifics. Well, I won't let that injustice occur on my channel. As a big fan of both vanilla Persona 5 and Royal, Strikers is a heartwarming, nostalgic reunion with old friends. The moment in the story we are reintroduced to the Phantom Thieves via a surprise party they throw for Joker stands out as one of my favorite gaming moments from last year. I almost got genuinely emotional seeing these characters again, even though it hadn't been that long since I completed Royal. Playing through this world and interacting with these characters has become a form of comfort food for me, because I know exactly what I'm going to get out of the story, and I'm all in for the ride. What I didn't expect from Persona 5 Strikers was how much I would end up enjoying the Musou-style gameplay. Normally, I find this style of combat to be one note and boring, but there's enough Persona 5 flavor injected into it to make it exciting and fun. I was surprised by how many elements from the usual Persona combat loop were melded into the tried and true hack and slash gameplay. But aside from the combat, the usual high-quality stuff I've grown to love from Persona 5 is all here. The style is impeccable, the music rocks so hard even without series composer Shoji Meguro's involvement, the returning and new characters are charming, and the dungeons are mostly fantastic. I enjoy Strikers so much that I wouldn't mind another sequel in a few years. I'd love to see these characters again once they've aged some more and go on another adventure together. There wasn't a game I was looking forward to more in 2021 than Resident Evil Village, and I'm relieved that it made it onto the end of the year list. I can't think of another game in recent memory that is more tailor-made for my gaming sensibilities and aesthetic preferences. It's a thrilling, hilarious, and sometimes terrifying love letter to horror itself and its multiple tropes and subgenres set in a stunning, ever-expanding Transylvanian village. Not since the famous Resident Evil 4 has the series been this good. Like its predecessor Resi 7, Village finds a way to cohesively meld a ton of different influences from both movies and video games. There are the obvious ones like Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman that are given their own Resident Evil twist. But then Village will pull off something unexpected, like dropping you into its own horrifying take on PT. The story twists and finale don't quite stick the landing, but Village remains an endearing good time from beginning to end. Hell, I had no problem playing through it 3 more times to hunt down the collectibles I missed and grind enough currency to purchase the OP weapons. In the end, I'm left with what comes close to being my favorite Resident Evil game of all time. I've said this many times on the channel, but Capcom has been on a seriously impressive roll since 2017. There have been some bumps along the way, but they've done such a great job earning back my goodwill since their frankly embarrassing 7th gen console days. There was a time when I couldn't give less of a shit about Capcom, and now I look forward to nearly every one of their new releases. And among the winning streak, Resident Evil Village is one of the publisher's brightest gems. Admittedly, it wasn't even a contest for 2021's Game of the Year. Nothing else even came close to how phenomenal It Takes Two is. It Takes Two ran away with that award before 2021 even reached its halfway mark. In retrospect, Hazelight's previous co-op title, A Way Out, feels like a mere warm-up compared to the torrent of creativity, imagination, and gameplay finesse that It Takes Two has. For this being Hazelight's sophomore effort, it's astonishing how much of a massive step up in quality it is. Every year there is always one game in this annual series that is the toughest to talk about. The reason It Takes Two is that game this time around is that I don't really know how to efficiently summarize everything I love about it. To start off with, It Takes Two is the greatest co-op game I've ever played. I've talked about variety being a plus with some games on this list, but those games pale in comparison when it comes to the sheer amount of gameplay ideas, locations, and ingenious set pieces It Takes Two crams into its 12-hour playtime. And the miraculous thing is that none of it comes across as poorly thought out nor clumsily paced. All of its gameplay ideas are fine-tuned to a nearly flawless degree that all of them could have short, dedicated games built around them. I played this game with fellow content creator and good friend Doggybone Gaming, and we were both repeatedly floored by how many cool things Hazelight was able to throw at us. I cannot stress enough just how enjoyable this game is. It's almost a shame that It Takes Two requires two people, because I know there will be a lot of people who won't want to bother playing it due to that requirement. But I promise that you and whoever you manage to play this game with will have one of the best gaming experiences of your lives if you dedicate the time to it. Hazelight is rapidly becoming one of my all-time favorite studios, and they might have already peaked with this game. Founder and game director Joseph Fares has gone on record to say that he wants his studio's next game to top It Takes Two. Unlike so many other game industry figures, I have full confidence in Fares' words, but I honestly have no idea how Hazelight is going to accomplish that. It Takes Two is almost too amazing for the studio's own good, because it creates an almost impossibly high bar to leap over. Time will tell how their next project will turn out, but right now It Takes Two is a masterpiece. It's one of the greatest games I've ever played, and easily my favorite game of 2021.